RTI, or Response to Intervention, is a multi-tiered approach aimed at identifying and supporting struggling students. RTI relies on 4 essential components to be implemented with integrity. First, there must exist high-quality, scientifically based classroom instruction. Second, a teacher or other school personnel must maintain ongoing student assessment. Third, tiered instruction. And fourth, parent involvement. I mentioned that RTI is a multi-tiered approach, and our third essential component was that tiered instruction must exist in the classroom. So let's look a little more closely at what that means. The first and largest tier within RTI is at the base of our triangle. In this tier, all students receive instruction and intervention in the general education classroom. The students in this group are around grade level and are not in danger of falling behind or severely struggling. It is important, though, to mention that teachers in this level are expected to be using high-quality, scientifically and evidence-based instruction so that all students have the opportunity to learn and master course content. This is where our second essential component, ongoing student assessment, comes into play. If, after receiving instruction and intervention in that Tier 1 in the general education classroom, students are not making adequate progress in the core curriculum, and this would be identified by results on ongoing teacher assessment, those students move up to Tier 2. In this level, about 10 to 15% of students receive targeted, individualized instruction. You'll notice that as we move up our triangle, the size of the group receiving instruction is going to diminish, but the intensity of the interventions given get more intense and more individualized. Even after receiving these more intensive instructions in Tier 2, there will still be some students who haven't mastered course content or for whom the interventions aren't working. Those students are going to move up to Tier 3, which represents the most intensive and most individualized instruction. These are the 5 to maybe 10% of students that would be referred to special education services. So you've heard about the basic structure of RTI, you've seen the pyramid, you know how it works for students, but why would you want to take this model and implement it in your classroom? Well, there are a lot of benefits to RTI, and I'm just going to list a few. But first, and I think most importantly, RTI is a really great way of identifying and targeting your students who are really struggling or at risk of failing and not mastering course content. Those students who are struggling then get targeted intervention that's aimed to meet their individual needs. And through RTI, as a teacher, you're able to narrow down the causes of their struggles and their academic difficulties and find supports to put in place that will help those students become successful. As a teacher, almost even selfishly, through RTI, your instructional practices and your assessment practices are bound to improve. If you are actually implementing this with fidelity and you're really dedicated to working to see your students succeed, then even in Tier 1 in your general education classroom, you're serving all students with really high quality instruction using evidence-based techniques and differentiating learning for all your diverse students. Now, even if your students get all the way to Tier 3 and you've tried interventions, they haven't worked, you have the assessment data to prove this, if those students do need to be referred to special education services, early intervention is key. So by identifying those students and knowing what interventions have been tried and what haven't worked, you're really providing a really valuable service to that student. And he or she will be able to get the supportive services they need when their learning issues may have gone unnoticed if you hadn't been implementing this really targeted instruction in your classroom.
Created using Powtoon.